Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and yali madad mu'minin wa mu'minat and our viewers. We're back again today with this episode of discussion with Dr.Naweed Syed. And as the name of the program indicates, we have Dr.Naweed Syed with us as our expert and specialist. Today we are a bit short on participants due to unforeseen reasons. So we have, as of now, Farial Zahra online with us. But we will be joined by others later in the program. I do wanted to start this program on a very somber note today. One of our the senior directors and senior anchor person of QAIM TV recently passed away during Ziyarat. And we wanted to take some time to kind of say a few words about him. His name was Syed Muhammad Abbas, commonly known as Nayyar Abbas. He was a very well-known and loved personality in Greater Toronto area and Karachi in Momin. He has been a part of Azadari since from a very early age. So in Karachi, he was part of an Anjuman for Matamdari, and he was took very active role in GTA. After his arrival, he's been taking part in so many different activities involving literary activities involving Marcia and Jashin Mahafils of Qasidas and Mankabats. He's very well. He was very well received in younger generation because he was a very friendly person, and he would spend time with that. Unfortunately, I had a very short acquaintance with him, so I don't have a lot to say. But the only few things that I have encountered so far, that's all I have. Is basically he's a very strong-minded, strong-opinionated person. But the trait that normally is not seen in persons with this trait is his flexibility to listen, to adapt, to agree to an alternative or opposite point of view than his. So that was one thing that I was able to notice in his short interactions that I've had with him. I would like Dr. Naweed Syed, who has a bit more interaction with him than myself, to say a few words, and then we'll move towards our regular program and discussions. Dr. Saab, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam and Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think, I'm honestly speechless in terms of what really we could say about Nayyar Bhai. And he was such an incredible human being. And more importantly, I think he was also a true follower of our Masumeen. His efforts were really to expedite the educational activities for our youth. He was at the forefront. He always believed that the survival of our nation as an ummah was contingent upon us really inspiring our youth and younger generations to aspire to be the educationist or in education, science, research, technology. Also, I think his services and his connectedness for the Shia television networks was incredible. He was just an icon in his own right. He was, very kind, very gracious, very insightful, very thoughtful, very knowledgeable individual. And I got to know him last Ramadan when he asked me to come on for 10 minutes for every program. But he was, his commitments were so relentless and his pursuit for excellence was so incredible that I actually stayed for 30 days with him for the entire programs. Ulama and scholars and the reciters will come and go, but he would stay put. I would stay put with him. I had the last conversation with him before he went for ziyarat. So he called me, he says that I'm going for ziyarat, inshallah, when I come back, we will do this, and Ramadan is this. Unfortunately, he went to a better place. And I think it's a tremendous, I think, his wish was always that he wanted to be closer to Masumeen. So I think, मैं यही कहूँगा कि जब हश्र के मैदान में आज़ादार मिलेंगे, परचम के तले सारे वफादार मिलेंगे, मातम के निशान हम भी दिखाएंगे बसत शौक, जब हमसे गले मीसम में तमार मिलेंगे. So I think we will all unite, inshallah, at that spot. But
inshallah,
it's a tremendous loss, and our sincere condolences to the entire family. His mission was this program. This program was his brainchild. Actually, yes. He wanted to make sure, and I committed to it, and so did you, Jamil Bhai. You committed to it as well, because he really meant it, and he was there bringing children and also promoting, azadari among the young children. So he will be dearly missed. May Allah raise his stature in the company of our Masumin, inshallah. And also, I think we will continue with his legacy, inshallah.
Inshallah, we'll just we'll pray a loud salawat for him, and inshallah, when you're reciting namaz today, pray a Fatiha for him. His name was Syed Muhammad Abbas. And with that, I just wanted to say that these programmings, as Dr. Saab has mentioned, is basically his brainchild. And I believe when he initially pitched this idea to me, he said that we committed in last Ramadan during Dr. Saab, your programs, that we'll have something for youth, and we'll have them have the program in English, so it's relatable and it's easier for youth to participate. When we were discussing the program, he was adamant that we should not even include a sentence of Urdu. It should all be in English, so all the youth can be a part of it and understand it. So really, and then then we're trying our best to live up to his expectations, and inshallah we'll be successful. We do want to move on to the program, Dr. Saab. So just to give a brief synopsis of what we have discussed before. So the program is based on QAIM TV's theme of Maktab-e Ahlebait 2050, which basically envisions as to where do we want to be when the year 2050 comes as a Shia Ummah, and what do we need to do to get there. So looking at that, this program was envisioned by Nair Bhai and Shariar. And we said that initially we had charted out a few points that we will be following as a long-term agenda. So we'll start with education. We have the next as job seeking, and the next when you get there, that's okay. What will make you succeed in jobs, and then when you have a job and you've succeeded, what's next? Where do you go next? So we'll be talking about all those program aspects in the coming programs. Today we continue on our theme on our discussions on education. In the past a few programs, we have discussed the importance of new and upcoming fields of study, and Dr. Saab has in the last program mentioned artificial intelligence in medical, in robotics, and a few others that were very new to me too. I considered myself to be a bit into knowing what's going on in the world, but sadly not. But thanks to this program, I'm also getting a chance to know about this. So we'll talk more about those programs, those new fields of study, and we'll take some questions from the participants. I do request that you will see a number down there to contact us. So if you want to be a participant or have a question, please feel free to approach us so that we can include you or your question in the program. If you send a question, we'll answer it in the next program or two, inshallah. So Dr. without taking too much of a time, what we'll do is I'll start with a question that I had in mind. In the last program, we did talk about some emerging fields of study as I mentioned, AI in different fields like medicals and robotics and all that. Would you like to take some time and talk some more about either AI or any other fields that would interest our youth to be able to go or select those as a career?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you again, Jamil Bhai. I think you set it up really well. And I think in the first couple of programs, we talked about as the identity, our identity and the identity of youth. Just as a reminder for our youth, we would like to really, put our charter on the board to say that we worship no one but Allah, and we are the followers of Ahlebait Salamullah alayhi. We also derive our inspirations from the guidance, from Quran and the family of our beloved Prophet, peace be upon him. And we also believe that Azadari is our lifeline. It is our jugular vein, and it is really, and the vilayat of Janabi Amir is our zenith. We also really talked about that knowledge is our treasure and wisdom is our heritage. As a ummah, this is what we really need to aspire. And then we also talked about that majalises, they are our universities, and these are unique universities where things are actually taught like nowhere else. You have all subjects being taught, and their children, women, and elderly, young, everybody sits in the same class. So that is something really important. And then we talked about also the services, the rent we pay for the privilege of being part of a great community and as a follower of Ahlebait. So I think this is really what the gist of our discussions, has been. And we also talked about really what our responsibilities are. And we discussed that, for our youth, that you don't need to be, or you don't have to be a rocket scientist, or even go to Harvard, Stanford, MIT, Oxford, Cambridge, but everyone has the ability or is capable of being a decent human being. And I think those moral codes of conduct that have been instilled in us by our Masumins are the core of any education. If our educational activities do not empower us to follow these paths, then I think the education is really pointless. And we also talked about, the importance of, knowledge. We also discussed Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam says that I would like to see my Shia youth in two states. Now, either they are knowledgeable person themselves, or they are in conquest of knowledge, or in search of knowledge. So I think that was really the essence we talked about. And then the topic really came around to ask to, what are the areas that we need to prepare our youth and ask them to really think about those disciplines. And this is also not something new, because Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, when he used to have his classes, that was just like Azadari, albeit it would be spread throughout the Masjid al-Nabawi, and then in Kufa, whereby 18, 19 classes will go on concurrently, and student had the ability and the options to move around from one place to another. And if they didn't like one particular area of subject, they would move to the next area of subject. So that really was the interdisciplinary nature of education that is now coming back, because if you are expert in one particular field, it's really not going to cut it. So it's important for our youth to really think about careers that will be really the future. As you know, that even during COVID-19, whereby the infectious rates were so high, we in our hospital had these little robots, and these robots will go around delivering food, water, vital signs, taking vital signs, and also really taking the message back and forth from the command center to the others. So this machine learning or artificial intelligence or robotics is an area that will be really very, very important. We also know that the future of medicine and healthcare is now merging with artificial intelligence, machine learning, engineering, and many, many subjects together. Those days are gone, whereby you really have to go to individual places. You go to family doctor, the doctor refers you to specialist sends you to, doing all kinds of tests, and it comes back. Now it is the healthcare aspect of it is becoming a one-stop shop. So it will have the pharmacy on board, your healthcare monitoring, your medication on board, and also your charts and records will be actually at one place, and a single touch of your finger. And what does that really involve? It involves almost all disciplines to come together to be able to do it. The other technologies that I was just involved in today all day in a creative destruction lab, and I'm a chief scientist. So all the technologies that are coming on board, they come through us. We validate, and then we help them, take those products from prototyping into the market. So, we talked about today about these biosensor technologies, whereby you could have a bio stamp, like a sticker that is stuck, but it is taking all your vital signs. It is, calculating when you took the medication, whether you did not, if you're an elderly person who has Alzheimer's, whether you've gotten lost, and where you are. If you fell, it will send the signal to command centers. So these people who are remotely being monitored, they could actually be taken care of through modern technologies in the biomedical engineering. We also talked about, there were some young kids, and as young as first and second year university, they actually came up with this idea of a capsule that you could swallow that capsule. And this capsule goes through your GI tract, and it is looking for polyps in your GI tract, in your guts, in other places. It's looking for any abnormalities. And you know what? It is also collecting your samples, your gut microbiome samples, which when they are excreted on the other side, could send all of this information and tells you how good your gut health is, and whether there are any polyps or any cancerous or any bleeding in your GI tract. And they can remotely not only sense this information to the command center, to the hospitals and doctors, but it will also ask the surgeon if he wanted these little capsules and gadgets could actually take that polyp out and dissect it so it could be excreted out into your feces. So, those technologies are also being produced by younger kids, younger generation. And so for this, they needed to really have all kinds of sensors built onto just a tiny little capsule. So that is really an area that is becoming, remote biosensing is becoming a very, very important area. And the other important things that we are also doing is that if you have cancer, of course, there is no cure, but we only delay or we manage these tumor cells. We can specifically generate an antibody and tag it with a nanoparticles, and this nanoparticle will then bind to those particular tumor cells, and then you could make it destroy that tumor and that cancer cells. So similarly, delivering vaccines, and drugs and other medication through those nanoparticles is also becoming an important area that our youth should really think about, that the world of medicine is really changing, but the healthcare is changing, and so is our data management and data collection changing. We can also do is that if a mother is pregnant, we can take the blood sample and we can analyze those blood samples to actually predict whether the baby that is yet to be formed, let alone delivered, will have any genetic abnormalities. For example, it could have Down syndrome or other diseases. So in the most cases, people will ask the doctors to abort the fetus. But what we could do now is that we can actually use CRISPR technologies, the CRISPR-9. We can go and selectively pick that gene, cut off that defective part, and then insert the healthy gene back in there. So these babies that are then born will have really normal, normal behavioral repertoire and normal behavior. And all of these, remote sensing, remote surgeries now, we have surgeons who could sit in Calgary, but operate in somebody, a patient in, for example, in Toronto or in Scarborough, Mississauga. They can perform surgeries. But to be able to really do this as fast, we needed to have a fast digital and a telehealth system, which is really now on board. So we have 5G. 5G allows us to be able to really do just about anything from making coffee home, having drone deliver your goods, even control your bicycle, your home, your car, and your vital signs. All of this is really coming and becoming a one-stop shop. And then, of course, you need huge data management and data acquisition. Now, quantum and cloud computing is really becoming also a very powerful tool whereby our youth really need to pay attention to. And these cloud computing technologies for computer science students are particularly really very, very powerful. And the last few I would mention is that remote diagnostics and surgeries. As I mentioned, the surgeon can perform surgery in a different place than where they actually are. And this is creating what we call hybrid operating room, where robots and also human specialists who are overseeing the activities of robots are actually performing surgeries from a distance. So these technologies, are becoming really incredible. We're 3D printing, so we can print cartilages and bones, and even now hearts and other parts of the body, which requires, again, the cutting edge technologies, whereby you have computer science, you have artificial intelligence, machine learning, robots, and all of these, tools coming together. So I think in a sense, the world is really changing, because if our robots, they our super AI gets access to information processing capabilities as a human, then sky is really the limit. But those are the areas of the future that will drive our not only economy through developing novel technologies and commercializing, but also delivering better healthcare.
Well, that's so the sci-fi pictures movies that I watch are really coming into reality now. I have a couple of comments, and then we'll move on to maybe a question from either Faryal or Amira, who has just joined us. Welcome, Amira. The point that comes to my mind, and I want to emphasize, and Dr. Saab, correct me if I'm wrong, and I did hear you mention data management, and data is so important. I remember a quote from someone which said, in God I trust, the rest is data. It's huge. It's data analytics, machine learning. These are other. There are other, when Dr. Saab is talking about medical field and computers and AIs and robotics, it's not only those fields. There are other fields that are at the back end of this. For example, as Dr. Saab mentioned, data management and data analytical tools. There's so many new developments coming in, huge big data management. There's a lot that's going on in the world of data management, which actually allows people like Dr. Saab to study outcomes of their experiments and researches. So don't get just thrown back by all this scientific discussions. At the back end, there are other areas that feed into these two. Having said that, so Dr. Saab, that would mean that we may not have to wait for a CT scan for 3 months to diagnose something. So that wouldn't those particles, that technology you were mentioning would speed up that process. It would be like real time, happening real time, and so that would save, I believe, a lot of lives if it's that. Those were just a couple of comments from me. So Faryal or Amira, if you have a question on this, or any questions that you may have had to face during the last few weeks, you can definitely give it to us now, and Dr. will inshallah answer those.
Yes, I have a question, but Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I wanted to ask, what is deemed academically successful? Like, is there like a specific degree? Like, if somebody has like a master's degree, oh, you're the most successful person there can be, or like, is there like a specific field, or is there like a specific course that one does when they're like, okay, now you're like deemed successful, like academically, not in terms of like jobs and all, but more in terms of like academics?
That's really a lovely question, you know, and somebody asked me in the past too, how do you define success and being famous, right? So I gave them the example that, you know, Madonna was famous, but Mother Teresa was successful. So the success is actually defined in a very different context, that it's not just what you have done or achieved for yourself, but whatever you have done, how it has benefited the humanity. So you actually raise the tide, so all boats come up. So I think the success is that, you know, to put a smile on someone's face, to raise a happy, healthy child, to raise, you know, to look after the elderly and the sick and needy people. That's what really success is. And it's not, that you have achieved a particular goal in your life. Of course, that is a success as well. But what comes out of that success actually defines. So if you're not complete without a master's degree or a PhD, and if you feel that you are not really complete, for example, having a particular career, then you will not be complete even if you get it. So I think every single step that you take a lot of pride in your achievement and in your accomplishments, and there is no limit to what you should achieve. You know, you should do as much as you can. Imam Ali alayhi salam said that, don't let, live in the world by all of its glorification and success, but don't let the world live in you. And he gave the example that a boat actually floats on the water for as long as the water is outside the boat. The moment the water starts to accumulate, or we start accumulating water into the boat will sink. So I think, you are asking some very, very good question, but the true satisfaction and happiness that comes from within you is the defining point for your success, right? So, if you are helping other people and you're raising the tide, so other boats are coming, other people are success. And someone had asked Imam Raza alayhi salam that, which kind of profession, business or other, livelihood should I thrive for? And, his answer was, choose a profession that creates the sustenance for other people, right? So he completely diverted that, become so high and so rich in your, academic achievements, as well as in your worldly life, that you are able to actually provide sustenance for other people and support other people.
So very nicely said, Dr. Saab. I go back to a couple of programs where we had discussed about goals, right? So as you mentioned, set your goals, achieve them, and set newer goals. Farrell, just my 2 cents on this would be the goal that you have set yourself. If you achieve that, that's your success. What others think about you is really out of context here. It's you who have to decide, okay, this is my goal, this is where I want to be, or this is what I want to do, and getting there is your success. And this is from Dr. Saab's last discussion too. And if you feel, and what he said just now, if you feel that, this was my goal and I've achieved it, I'm not satisfied, have another goal. Change your field. Do what you feel is good for you. So for example, I select a field, I study 3 years in it, and by that time a new field comes in, which is of utmost, I'm very much interested in it, then, change your goal. Be adaptable, be flexible. You set your goals. When you achieve them, that's your success. No one else tells you that you have succeeded in academics or otherwise. Does that kind of answer your question, Dr. Sabs, and my 2 cents?
Yeah, so, I would like to also add to it, what Imam Ali alayhi salam said, that, in terms of success, or in terms of really living a successful life, Imam alayhi salam said that the most complete gift of God is a life that is based on knowledge. So I think intellectual enlightenment that you gain from learning new aspects of it, that will really make you feel that you have been successful. And it's not really the degrees, that many people have degrees, but they have really, they're not very happy with their life, and they don't consider themselves successful. Yes, they make, money. And Imam Ali alayhi salam also said that the learned man understand the ignorant, for once he was an ignorant person himself. So I think, the idea really is that do what you do, and do it to the best of your ability. And once you achieve your targets, you should really raise the bar.
Yeah, very nicely said. And Dr. talking about success brings me to my next question. So we've been so far talking about education, fields of studies, and goals in that, and academic achievements. What about skills? Like to be successful in what you have studied for, one needs some skills too. Well, and there's some that are inherent and born in you, and some that you would have to develop. Would you spend a few minutes on what may be something that we can develop, either as a skill or as a trait in ourselves to combine that academic with the skills and to become successful?
And that's a very loaded question, and quite complex as well. But thank you for asking this. And I think academia is one aspect of it. If your education does not really make you a decent human being, that education is really futile and trivial. But acquiring a particular skill set is a key. Not everybody could go to Harvard, Stanford, or MIT, or they're not academically really good. My math was really terrible, and I knew that, I would always argue. I'll give you an interesting example that I got in trouble at home, and my dad had to go with me to school, and the school teacher said, "This child troubles me all the time." And my father said, well, how is so? And he said, I was teaching him percentages. And I said to him, look, this world, this is our earth. We showed him a globe, and we said, 70% of it is water. Then there are forests, then there are deserts, then there are mountains, and then the people live on the land where they do cultivation. So he raised his hand and he said, okay, if 70% of it is water, why do we call it Earth? Why don't we call this planet as an ocean? So, of course, my math wasn't very, kind of conducive to my teacher's teaching. So he would, smack me and asking for all these kind of crazy questions. So that put me off of math. And I said, if I could do things with calculator, why do I need to really learn all of these Pythagoras theorems on, this and that? And this simple calculator allows me to do this. So I knew the math wasn't really my forte. It wasn't my cup of tea. So I was more interested in biological, things and electronics and other kinds of things. So that really helped me develop some technical skills. And those technical skills where I could take, a toy apart and I put it back together. And so those technical skills are really also just as important, learning different skill sets. But the problem I see there, and I often remind our children, and we talked about this earlier too, that if a person who knows how may have a job, but a person who asks the question why will always be his boss.
True.
So, even in a big company, if you don't ask the question why are we doing this? then the senior management people will say, why you? Why is it that you are appointed for this job? So I think, the constant thing is, even in technology and in skill sets that you're developing, you're learning, be that a computer, electronics and other aspects, they're really important, but you need to sharpen your saw all the time. Once you reach a particular stage, just raise the bar. Next, I have to learn something higher, more higher. And as a result, for any organization, then you become irreplaceable, because you have really seen the transition of all companies, steps that it took to get to that place. So I think, I give an example of this kid was really trying to, a person was trying to cut a piece of wood for his fireplace, and it was getting dark, and he's really using his saw and it's not cutting. And somebody came and he said, I think you should sharpen your saw. And he said, I don't have the time. So, he should have sharpened his saw when he actually, prior to needing it. So as they always say that, dig a well before you feel thirsty. So I think even in technologies, you need to be able to read, and see what the cutting edge technologies are, where the field is advancing, and constantly improve, be that in the academic circle. If your Masumins have also said, if you're, today is not better than yesterday, you wasted one important year, day of your life. And Muhammad Ali also once said that, if at the age of 50, I think like 25, I wasted 25 years of my life. So I think skill set or academia, any profession you choose, as a follower of Ahlul Bayt, you should excel and lead that field in all facets of life and disciplines.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. So I know this was a question that we can talk at length about, but at this point of time, I just wanted to put it out here so that we lay a foundation for our future programs where we're talking about acquiring jobs or succeeding in jobs. I think that's where skills and development of skills and different tools will really come into play, and we'll have detailed discussions on that. Amira, did you have a question that you have either on the subject or in general that we can take up right now?
I'm okay for now, thank you.
Okay, perfect. No worries. So we're getting towards the end of the program. Dr. Saab, we've talked about academics. We have talked about skills and successes. What part does our religion, which is of course a basis of our whole programming and whole team, what part does that play? Like, how does that help us put these two together, the skills and the academics?
So I think, again, a loaded question. Whatever we actually talked about, that is religion. So when you think about 10 parts of religion, namaz and, salat and fasting is only one small little part. The rest is all what it is that we do to better the lives of other people, our huquq al-ibad, rights of our family, neighbors, the society in general. Those are really all important component. And you cannot contribute to any of those until and unless you yourself are actually self-sufficient. So when you are flying in an airplane, they say if the air pressure drops, the mask will drop, put on the mask on yourself first before you can help anyone. So the point really there is that if you passed out, you cannot help your loved ones, your own children. This is why it's important to strengthen your own ground, your own career, and establish them that way. And I was asked that question by the CNN reporter as well. And he said, you have developed this neurochip, but in US, we have so many resources. How come, where do you derive your inspiration from? So I said to him, from Quran and Ahlul Bayt, and he looked at me, he says, I understand Quran, but what is this Ahlul Bayt thing? So when I introduced, Masumin, he looked at me and he said, your faith is really very strong. So I told him, I can write the best essay, I can write the best manuscript, but if you take that light off, I cannot read my own writing. So my faith actually provides true meaning to the knowledge that I generate through education, research, innovation. That really is the backbone. So I think the faith plays a very, very important role, because all of these sources of knowledge, they bring us closer to the Creator, who is the actual, creator of the universe. And so when we go into really teasing apart the secrets of Mother Nature, we get closer and closer and closer to our Creator. And that's really is the biggest and then the greatest and the most, I think, important act of worship.
Jazakallah, Dr. Syed. Thank you so much. So we're about at the end of our program. Just a reminder that you would see a couple of phone numbers on the screen. If you have any question, you can WhatsApp those questions to us. These programs are recorded through Zoom, so any part of the world. If you want to participate in the program live, you can definitely do that by contacting either of those numbers on WhatsApp, and we'll for sure get in touch with you and arrange that. So with that, having said that, we'll end today's program with again a dua that Allah Ta'ala increase the darajat of Nayar Bhai and give us this, give us the strength and the opportunities to follow his footsteps and the services that he had done towards the Dadari, whether be it in TV channels, as Dr. Saab said, or in literary circles. So having said that, I want to take your leave today, and we'll inshallah see you in the next program. Thank you, and Khuda Hafiz.